shit.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Welcome to the Muscle, Mind, and Money Podcast. I am one of your hosts. My name is Dominic.
And this is Nastasia. Now on to the show.
We're back and we're better than ever with the Muscle, Mind, and Money Podcast. So today for another special guest and dialing remotely from beautiful Denver, Colorado is Miranda Palone. She came on the show today to help us with some of our financial need. And this has been a close friend of Nastasia's for many years, one that I've had the pleasure of connecting with over the last 8 years as well. And she's just been remarkable in her growth in, yes, you want to call it the financial field, but it's one in the housing market. She's a mortgage broker. Is that correct, Miranda?
Yeah, mortgage lender, but
lender. Yeah. I know there's lots of formalities to titles, and she's advanced her careers. She's a very special lady, but I'm going to turn it over to Nastasia so she can introduce her.
We are not close friends. We are best friends.
Uh-oh, besties.
Best friends for life.
All right, everybody. Welcome, Miranda. She is a branch manager with Fairway Independent Mortgage Corporation, which basically means she's the top of the top and the head honcho of senior mortgage loan officers and runs her own branch. And so while she's not like a technical financial advisor, Miranda has spent the last 17 years getting people approved to get their own house. And when you do that, you have to know everything about their bank accounts and ins and outs of money. And she kind of inadvertently turns into a financial counselor because she wants to help people get into these beautiful homes. So I did, Miranda, say that you have been doing this for 17 years, but if you guys see her on the video, it doesn't even seem like she's old enough to be doing this for 17 years. And her story is just phenomenal and one of major inspiration. So I'm going to turn it over to Miranda to tell us about how she got started in this whole industry and why she's like the best person to talk to about money because of her personal experience. So go ahead.
Okay. Well, yes. So I have 17 years in the business. I started as I had like this temp job when I was a senior in high school. And I worked as a receptionist at a mortgage company. And I started like picking up on the lingo around me, like, debt to income ratio and LTV and all these like mortgage terms. So I applied to be a loan processor, and that was like the paperwork job in the mortgage business. And so I had applied, and I kind of just lied about my experience to get the job. But the good thing is that I got taken on by this company who trained me really well early on. I was 19. Well, I might have been 18. And they trained me to be a loan processor, and then I just went from there. I was a loan processor, and then I started as a loan officer selling the mortgages, and then I worked my way up to branch manager. So and it's weird to say that I have that much experience, but I started from the bottom and now I'm here.
Hey. So Miranda's been very financially independent since she was really young, and she's had times where she's had, a ton of success in her, well, you've always had a ton of success in your career, but like she put herself through college, she bought her own house independently. Like there's a lot of things that Miranda's done when it comes to understanding money. But I feel like I attribute a lot of that to your experience in this field and like seeing what other people have and didn't have and kind of setting you up, right?
Yeah. I mean, I talk to people every day about their finances, about their credit, about how they're spending. And so I've just picked up a lot of good ideas along the way, and I love sharing them with other people.
Yeah. So today, while we were getting ready for this podcast, actually, we were prepping for it like over the weekend. Miranda's like, okay. And she gave me a list of like 15 things. I'm like, oh my God, let's just start with some of the simple stuff. Cause like most of us, including us, don't know a lot about this. So her knowledge is very vast. And today we're going to kind of zoom in on some relevance that has to do with the current state of affairs, and also some things I think that'll help us coming out of this whole lockdown and this whole situation that's going on with the economy on top. And so, Dominic, I'll turn it to you to get us started.
Yeah, Miranda. So what I really appreciate about Miranda in the 17 years of being in this business and starting from the ground up, she's in the last 17 years, she's seen one recession from a housing market. Take us even back into the late, before then, there was a small little bubble pop of the .com. And now we're currently in what you'd technically call a recession. Is that correct, Miranda?
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. economy is showing all the early signs of being in a recession. The number one indicator is employment. It's kind of a funny technical, but when unemployment is really, really low, that's the biggest sign of a recession coming. And here we are. And this whole coronavirus thing is just kind of pushing it forward.
Yeah, and during any time that things suddenly from, let's say on one day it's fine, on the next day we have globally, we call it lockdown from different countries, but here in North America and Canada and the U.S., we're told to stay in our homes, businesses start to shut down, and within, it's never been in precedent before, 7 days, everything's been contained, and now the economics of employments have shrunk. People go into panic. And at times like this, people don't know if they should spend money or save money because, yes, technically things go on sale like the stock market does, but that may not be the right choice for you to do. It may be just to hold money. Miranda is a great resource to talk to because, Miranda, a home is someone's biggest purchase ever in their life, correct?
Yeah, it's the biggest purchase, but it's also the greatest investment. So, it's typically people's path to retirement, and it's an investment as well.
Yeah, and during recessions, Miranda taught us this is not time to panic. It's time to just reinvent. It's time to look at your budgets, to look at, do you rent, do you own? This is the time when everything seems to be disorganized. You should be the most organized because it's going to leapfrog you to the next step. When we're in our daily mindset of just how things go with, I go to work, I collect my paycheck, I spend my paycheck. Oh yeah, my wishes and wants are maybe to do something bigger and greater. We don't have a pause button. And this is actually times that Miranda helps a lot of people that were looking to buy homes or still wanting to buy homes to take that pause button and then reposition it. But Miranda, since all your years of being in the business, you've helped quite a few individuals figure out where they spend their money. And I don't think I guarantee you'd ask most people, oh yeah, I know where my money goes. And when you go to apply for definitely for a mortgage in the U.S., there's some different regulations between Canada and the U.S., but pretty much the principles are the same. You go through almost like a forensic scope and look at where people spend their money, because cash in versus cash out, and it matters where they spend their money. Is that correct?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and so the number one thing that we look at is budgeting, and it's kind of like this dirty word. People don't like to talk about a budget. It feels icky, it feels restrictive, but really, a budget is a path to freedom. If you can get your budget in line and take control of it, you can really go far with it. So when I'm looking at people's budgets, there's a few ratios that are kind of helpful. The first ratio would be your housing ratio, because that's the one that I deal with the most. And some people, depending on what your income is and how your income is structured, what I like to do is just talk about the different ratios. And that housing ratio, we really like to see between 20 and 35% of your income. And what I like to do is base it on somebody's base income, not including like bonuses and commissions and stuff like that, but 20 to 35%. A lot of times I'll see people come into my office where, they're just way over that. That's going to be stressful on their budget. But then I also see the other spectrum where people are way under that and they're not spending enough. And, your housing is so key because it is, when we're talking about renting versus owning, renting, what's the interest rate on rent? 100%. So you're throwing all that money away. Of course, people know that, but you want to get that housing sweet spot where you're paying, enough so that you're maximizing your monthly budget. So 20 to 35% is awesome. And some people don't spend enough on housing because it is an investment as well.
Okay, let me pause there because this is really interesting. So I make $2,000 a month, and that's what I bring into my bank account.
Before taxes or after,
Yeah.
Miranda?
Before.
So before taxes. So on paper, I'm paid $2,000 a month, but let's say I bring into my checking account $1,500. You want to see where you're saying the sweet spot is 20% of that $1,500, or I'm sorry, 2,000.
20 to 35%
of the 2,000, the stuff before you get taxed on, is being used towards a mortgage or rent. Like that's what you're spending on your dwelling.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'd say $400 to $700. That's what the math would be on that.
Okay, if someone, and you do find people, I'm making $2,000 a month and I'm spending $1,800 on rent. Like you find that those individuals or a mortgage, is that technically what you'd call someone house broke, as I put that in air quotes?
Yeah. If you're above that 35%, you're going to feel it. But of course, there's other factors that come into play. And the other factors are, what are your monthly bills? So when you look at, you have this housing ratio, but you also have your monthly bills. So the monthly bills, if you add in, what are those? You want that to be 50 to 55% plus the housing. So you want to be spending no more than 55% of what you make before taxes. And so sometimes when people are, are really tight on income, but they've got their bills down, they can go up in those higher ratios up to that 40, 45% of their housing expense if they don't have a lot of monthly bills, because it doesn't matter what you make, it matters what you spend.
Because I might be somebody that has debt from law school, and then another family might not be paying any of that. So I might have a little bit of an upside on my quote unquote bills that I can then roll that into my housing. Right. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. Where I'm fascinated with is actually it's the before tax number. So why would we base it off of what my total income is before I get taxed? Because
I have to pay the
after
taxes.
taxes is what actually hits my bank account, and everything that if I got to pay rent or a mortgage or a credit card payment, that's payment out of the after tax cash that I have.
Yeah, I mean, these are just kind of round figures to work with, but the thing is that taxes, that's such a hard thing to gauge when you're looking at somebody's finances, because, you get tax credits, so it's easy to look at like what your before tax income is and try to base these numbers off of them.
These are safe thresholds is what you're saying. So that you won't be overly taxed if you're breaking it into these percentages. Everyone will fall into that. And yes, there is different circumstances. So at the end of the day, after I've paid my mortgage or my rent, my car, food, all basic necessities to live, what percentage of income should be left over
to save?
So, well, for savings, the rule of thumb since the beginning of time has always been save 10%. There's a book I really love, and I have it right here. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon.
Great book.
And it talks about how you need to save 10% of your income. And so 10% is kind of the rule of thumb. Super savers are saving up to 20%. And so that doesn't leave you a ton of like discretionary income, but you're looking at right around like 30, 40%, 50% potentially for your discretionary spending, and that would include your taxes too.
Okay.
Why does this matter so much? Is it to get people qualified? Is it just healthy savings and finances? Like, because people can find ways to manipulate the numbers. But at the end of the day, like this is something. So if in your business, if you're going to grant someone a 30-year mortgage, you want to make sure over the next 30 years, even though they may not keep their home at all that long, that investment of letting them borrow money is protected, because that they're financially savvy enough. Is that the reason?
Yeah, and it's just, they're good rules of thumb so that people come to me a lot. Sometimes I'll have, like, for instance, somebody graduating from college. I had a doctor graduate from college, and he called me and he said, okay, I've never made this amount of money, but I'm about to walk into making this amount of money, and I don't even know, like, how much do I spend on my house? How much do I spend on, my monthly bills? Where do I go from here? And so I gave him, the rules of thumb, and it was a pretty nice house for him, but it was also that he wanted to, be in a good neighborhood with good schools and stuff like that. So you want to kind of look at the whole picture and use your income as a tool for growth as well.
Now, before I turn over to Nastasia, because she's got some great questions to follow up with, you mentioned earlier too, is what if you're not spending enough on housing? Do I need to level up, or should I just make more of a monthly payment to pay down the mortgage faster? What's your advice when you see that?
That is a big, question. And there's a lot of different like investment theories and stuff like that. But if you can afford a nicer house, the thing is, sometimes I have this conversation with people who are, let's say, in a condo. So a condo or a townhome, they just don't appreciate at the same rate as a single family residence. And so sometimes I'll encourage a couple or a family, like, hey, let's sell this condo. Let's get you into a single family residence that you're happier in. You can afford it a little bit more. And that investment is going to do significantly better than, let's say a condo or a townhome. So, you're talking about when we're moving up, then those are good conversations to have.
Huh, interesting.
So we talk about this 10 to 20% of savings, which sounds great on paper, but we know so many people that are living not only paycheck to paycheck, but like credit card bill rollover, like pay your minimum because I can't even pay the credit card, let alone I don't have any savings. And it's a real life situation for a lot of people. So now you're telling me I need to save, which if we didn't get the memo before 7 days ago, we got the memo now, because had we had a lot of savings, maybe this wouldn't be so much of a financially stressful time. But for a lot of people, I think it is. So we got to start somewhere, and we might as well start today. So you have some tips on how to make your saving really easy, a little bit mindless, and maybe a little bit fun when you start to see that savings bank account grow. So take us through these automation tips on how to make saving much easier and much more seamless and actually effective for all of us.
Yeah, so automation is so key, and we have all the tools to do it now. Our parents didn't have these kind of automation tools, and we really got to take advantage of it, because here's the thing. It takes a ton of discipline, just like a diet. It takes a ton of discipline to do the hard things. But with automation, it doesn't take that much discipline. You don't have to depend on your willpower. If you set up the savings, if you set up your budget to just be automatic and it drive itself, then it takes the whole willpower out of it. If, I've been married a long time, and the evolution from where we used to do budgeting and where we've come now has come a long way. And a lot of couples will have like a monthly meeting, or they'll, sit down and do their bills, or let's pay the bills. And that just takes a lot of discipline and effort. And there's so many tips on how to automate things to get rid of those things that take so much willpower and effort. It's talking about your money is just not that exciting. So one of the things that I love for savings in particular is if you have direct deposit, there's two things. If you log into your bank account to see what you're spending every day, a lot of people really depend on that. They log in, they see what their balance is, and then they know how much they can spend. So one of the things that I love for savings is if you were to create a separate bank account, a savings account preferably, that's online, and not a brick and mortar. In the States, there's one that's Ally Bank that I love. That's who I have mine through. And what I like to do is, it's kind of like a, finance hack, is you can call your employer, change your direct deposit so that it has 10% or 20%, whatever feels comfortable at the moment, but start with 10 if you can. And then say, okay, direct deposit this amount into this account that I never log into, that I don't see, that my rest of my paycheck doesn't go into. Direct deposit that separately, and then do another direct deposit for the rest of your paycheck to go into your normal bank account. Mm-hmm. And then that's a really good way for the money to just never be seen. It just automatically goes there. You can log in if and when you need it, but it's not something that you're checking on a regular basis. And then hopefully that would grow, and hopefully you would get a savings account that has a little bit of a return. I think the one that I have right now has like 1.6%. It's not that big, but it is something. And the thing is that when it comes to savings, the rate of return, people get so hung up on the rate of return. What's my rate of return on in the investment? It doesn't matter if you're not saving. Mm-hmm. The rate does not matter of return if you're not putting the deposit in there. So that's my favorite savings, hack, is to just switch your direct deposit. It's an easy one to do, and it's automatic.
So this one's a out of sight, out of mind hack.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I take 10% of what I'm earning, and I just create another little account, and then my employer helps me just by taking the couple. If I made $2,000, they're going to take 200. They're going to put it over into this account, and I don't ever really see it, touch it. So I'm not tempted to spend it.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us, I fall into this category. I spend what I see. So the more money I make, or if I make a huge check, it hits my normal account, I see it, and I want to go spend it. Whereas if it went into my secret account, I could still spend what I see. There's just a whole nother section that I don't see.
Exactly.
And
yeah, it's a really good way to just let it build and just not see it.
All right, tip number 2 on automation.
So the next one would be auto bill pay. So, it's really hard you got to have a little bit of cash reserves in there. Once you have a little bit of money in your bank account, just set up auto bill pay. Just, this will improve your credit. This will get all your bills paid on time. It won't require the discipline of you sitting down and paying your bills. Just do as much automation as possible. And then the third one is spend out of a credit card or a single account that you spend out of with all of your spending. So you can do this with your monthly bills, but you can also do this with your daily spending. So I talk about this a lot with couples. Sometimes I see couples that just have completely separate finances, and they don't even know what each other's spending. They don't even know what each other's making. And that's a whole different topic about, money and intimacy in a relationship, because sharing money is an intimate thing. But what I would say is the couples who I've seen do it really well is they have a shared joint credit card where they both get to see what they're spending. Now, I've been guilty with this in my own marriage where in the past, we didn't see each other's spending and habits and purchases. And I really admire the couples who do have like a joint credit card where they put all the spending together. They know what each other's spending. And the good thing that I do like about spending on a credit card and then paying it off every month, that's the key. You got to pay it off every month. Mm-hmm. But the thing that I like about that is that instead of like what you said earlier, where you're like, oh, I have this money in my bank account, let's spend it. And that's having an account and then depleting it. With a credit card, you're continually racking it up. And so it's a different mental shift that you go through when you're spending and increasing a balance and reaching a limit, a budget, that is a different mental exercise than depleting your monthly account.
Yeah, this is, I mean, there's some stuff that we are doing and some things that we're learning with you today with Miranda as she speaks, but this is something that for us has been so monumental because you're never in question of how much am I spending. I remember growing.
Hold on. We did a whole podcast on
the shoes.
Our same credit card statement, and I got ripped over. You spend so much on shoes, but I buy little things. So monumental.
Oh, but no,
moments of magic in the Genova household. But yes,
but it's all at one. At least we know what it is. There's not like a surprise at the end of the month, or I'm not trying to manage paying 6 credit cards off, and I don't know what went on the Nordstrom card or what went on the Amex card.
There was no embezzlement out of the checking account for things that not seen. Everything's open and in the public.
Yes, but it's all in the same place, which makes it so much more visible to know where you're at.
It is.
And also, I mean, this isn't really budgeting, but then all of your like rewards points go to one place, so you're getting cash back or trips, or I mean, we paid for like pretty much all of our hotels on this European trip just off of points from the credit card because they were all in one place to spend in one place. So you could take it from us. It's much easier to look at one thing, watch it go up, panic about one thing going too high, pull it back. And I mean, transparency of couple and joint accounts, like you said, that's like a whole different conversation. But even if I'm single, having one place that it's all coming out of makes it much easier than to run your suggestions, Miranda, of managing the spend and having predictability around the bills and, you know, having an understanding of what's going out and where it's going out. So if I have to change my budgeting or I need to shift more into savings because I am living paycheck to paycheck, I kind of have like one thing that I'm looking at to figure out where I'm spending the most and where I can cut back.
Yeah, Miranda's done something really great here. She talked about discipline, and with automation, you're allowing technology to be your disciplinary for you. So even taking 10 to 20% of your savings and putting it off to direct deposit, and then having auto bill pay. So when the gas and the water and all these expenses come through, it's automatically being electronically transferred out of your account. So what you are seeing left could be your play money. It could be it could be completely up to your discretion. And then on a credit card, when you use your credit card wisely, you make your credit card work for you versus you work on your credit card. You get points, you get benefits, you get discounts, but also you get fraud protection a lot easier. So if someone does hack the credit card and go buy things, you have an easy way to contest it. It doesn't come out of your checking account. And yes, if shit hits the fan, credit card is a minimum monthly payment and allows you to carry a balance. It's basically someone loaning you money every month saying, if you go over your monthly, if you don't pay this off, we're going to charge you 20% interest on it. But if you pay it off every month, you're going to get all the features and benefits. And if somehow the COVID-19 virus hits and you can't pay it off this month, you now have a window of just making little payments to keep it going. And you're not depleting your actual cash in your bank account. Super smart on this one, Miranda.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
So now I need help. So I need help on, this all sounds great on paper. I can totally set up my automation. I can shift things to one credit card. That's great. But how the heck can I get this housing in the right percent, these bills in the right percent, and my savings going? What are some apps that can help me that you've tested and that are really great if I'm like really motivated after this podcast and I'm going to go get my financial shit together? Where do I go for apps?
So my favorite app is Mint. It's really, it started out, some people signed up like 10 years ago and they have an account and whatever. It's changed a lot. It's a really good app for categorizing your spending and keeping you on budget. It will send you alerts if, you're at $300 of your $400 grocery budget for the month. It'll tell you these things. And I like Mint a lot. And it memorizes the categories that you're setting. The other one that kind of has a cult following that I tried to use, and I watched YouTube video after YouTube video on it, was YNAB. It's YNAB. It's called You Need a Budget. And I've heard this from my clients. They love it. They love YNAB. I can't figure it out, but I don't know. Maybe you can. And if you watch the YouTube videos, you can, figure it out. But the people who use it and understand it and love it, especially for the people who just have a set income and it doesn't fluctuate, YNAB is the best. And then the last one would be, most credit card companies are coming out with categorized spending, and they'll send you daily alerts too. Alerts on, you can set a budget for that, and they're coming a long way. So I like those too.
Isn't it with your bank account? And now we're going to get personal. Let's get intimate. Don't you get text messages every time something gets spent? I feel like I was with you once and Vinny spent something and you were like, what the fuck? Like, I feel like we could end up in a divorce if that was the case.
You can set spending alerts. I have spending alerts, and I got a text. I think mine is at maybe $150. Anytime something, over $150 is spent on the account, I get a text.
You got a text. So, this is like serious accountability. I feel like, why don't we just start with the automation and the app? Is that good?
Yeah, well, I'm not a huge fan of apps, but I am a huge fan of what Miranda is talking about with the apps. Is it breaks it down for you so if it's time to save or diversify, where to go.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when we think of I need to save money, the first thing that people think about is they have to cut out something they enjoy a lot, or they actually have no realization that a $2 to $3 coffee every single day, 7 days a week has such a financial impact to their budget. It allows for transparency. And what the apps and technology does is what many years ago bookkeepers or financial advisors would do with you is break down your bills and put it into spreadsheets for you so you could really look at it. Now, when you work with financial advisors or people in that industry, they're looking now, what do you have to save and where can we spend it to grow it the fastest? And that business has evolved itself. But for me, so take our podcast. You have muscle, mind, money. Where is the mind shift on this one, Miranda? Because it's so personal.
And it's so stressful.
It describes our value to society. It makes us feel like we have abundance, or it makes us feel like we have scarcity. Right now, in the everyone being asked to be at home or in office and very little social interaction, and businesses not open, they're worried about their money. Even I believe Donald Trump recently just said, hey, look, the cure can't be worse than the actual problem. And he's thinking about turning back on the economy in the U.S. just to get spending going, because that's the virus, right? It's the economy can be the virus. And so the mind shift that people have to have, let's take the virus out of it, or I come to you and I don't get approved for a loan. I may make great money, but I just don't. I got to have a mind shift and gamify it and have fun with it. And that was a big change for us to go from paycheck to paycheck to, wow, our savings is helping us grow and helping us become very flexible and have freedom. It was making games out of it. We briefly touched on it in a previous podcast, but you're the expert to help us. Like, how do we make a mental mind shift?
Yeah, Miranda, how do we get our listeners to look at money as the exciting, the fun, the wealth, the abundance, the present versus the punishment?
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about it. So creating the mindset that a budget lets you take control of your finances, and it gives you the freedom to make decisions about your future. And that's the real shift that you have to make. It's almost like the glass half empty, the glass half full. What are you going to do with the money that you do spend? And how do you create more money that's disposable and more money that's discretionary? And so a lot of people think that sitting down and writing down a budget is going to be hard and restricting, and it's going to create these negative feelings inside. But you got to make the shift to think, okay, I'm going to sit down and figure out how can I create more discretionary income so that I do have more freedom to, have 6 months in savings, travel when I want to, give my kids a financial future that they deserve, So it's taking that and shifting the mindset to, instead of having, like you said, scarcity, to abundance. And one thing that I really love, somebody said that, you know, you don't always have to say no, you just have to say not now. And I feel like that's something that I've really appreciated is, okay, well, maybe I want, you know, something nice for the house. I'm not saying no to it. And that feels much less restrictive than saying just not now, maybe next month.
That's powerful. So I can't have that. No, it doesn't work for me. It's just changing the voice in your head of, oh, not right now. But you do recommend set the goal.
Yeah.
Look at the vacation,
Definitely.
vision board it, whatever it is. If it's if it's the new home, or if it's the trip to Spain, or whatever it is, like, do not stop your eye and your thoughts around how do you get there, but just put your mind into not now. Just, I can't have it at this current moment, but I will soon, and I need to create a plan to do so. And then, okay,
exactly.
Phenomenal. What's one? What are some other healthy mind shifts that you've taught people? Like, don't look at it this way, and let's change your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole, I focus a lot about protecting money, and thinking about the hard things, like the what ifs that you maybe don't want to think about, you know, putting a will in place, having life insurance, things like that. You've got to think about these things, and set yourself up and try to have a more positive and realistic spin on them, because you gotta plan for these things. And if you set your goals, then the path becomes more clear.
And why I love today so much, you didn't speak once about go find a new job and try to go make more money. You are looking at your current situation, whatever it may be, and making more money within your current situation is within your control if you implement these tips and tricks that Miranda gave us today around budgeting and automation and apps and changing your mind shift. You don't necessarily have to go find another job to make more money. There is more money to be made in your current situation with whatever you're bringing in right now. Now, I love money, so we can go make more and we can side hustle and we can get promotions, and that's all good. But I also think it's important to look at your current situation and figure out how to maximize it while you're working on the additional streams of revenue or working on that promotion. And I had said one time in a podcast that my dad quoted, like, the more money you make, the more you'll spend. And so what we're trying to do today is say, hey, let's look at what we have, and how about we shift that to the more money you make, the more money you save, so the more money you have instead of the more money you spend. And all of this it's a muscle. So Dominic and I have worked in fitness for a long time. If you come to us with a fitness goal, there's discipline. Yes, there's things that you have to change in your behavior. So finances, it sounds like to me today, is like the same thing. But the great news with finances is that you can automate so much of it that it takes like a one decision to make to then go automate a lot of these things to get you halfway there. So you can decide today to make that change, and the computer and technology will take care of half of the work for you. So this is really empowering, really motivating, and I feel like it's really achievable and attainable.
Miranda, I got one more question for you, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
I know you're a big reader, and you're someone that's self-educated yourself through books and recommendations and seminars, and basically surrounding yourself with people that are maybe at a different level than you're at. And that's what I'll tell you, that's been her. She may not say it because she's very humble. Her 17 years of being in any kind of industry or business, Miranda's constantly striving for what is someone else doing and can I learn from it? But I love the book, Richest Man in Babylon. Is there two more other books or even one more other book you're like, hey, this is a must read for those? So Richest Man in Babylon.
She has them like in her back pocket right there.
She practices what she preaches. Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah, who's the author of that one?
Awesome one. Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
And these are different philosophies on how to save money, correct? And then
they're how to save and spend money, and they all have their different place and value. And I really like to be more well-rounded. When I talk to people and when I'm also coming up with theories for myself, I think about, okay, well, I liked this from that book, but I didn't like this from this book. Here's another one that has a lot of cult following is
Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey, Total Money Makeover. I do love a lot of his theories, but I gotta say I don't love the whole idea of paying off your mortgage in certain scenarios. So
wonder why in the industry you're in. Okay.
Well, I just think that with rates are where they're at now, that money could be better spent in other ways. So, and then the last one this is another Kiyosaki book.
Yeah.
The Rich Dad's Guide to Investing. This is a very large book compared to the smaller one. So this one's for more like complex investment theories that I really love too.
Yeah, and all of these have the same principles around the money you make is not the money you keep. And there's a huge difference between being rich in your bank account and being rich on paper. And so there's a broken mind shift there. And those are great books. I'd endorse every one of those, but very similar to what Nastasia talked about with fitness. You take the author, the theories, the practices of what you like, you apply them, and anyone and everyone can achieve the financial wealth that they're looking for to every degree. Miranda, it's been a true pleasure to have you on the podcast today. You've been amazing.
You.
Is there any?
You guys are amazing.
Is there? We always like to do a plug. Is there anything that you're working on, or people can find you, or Instagram, or we'll put, of course, your contact information down below in our notes. But anything coming up on your end?
You can find me on Instagram, Mandie Palone, MandiePalone, and that's also my website, mandiepalone.com. But really, I'm just a big fan of you guys, and I'm honored to be on the show.
Well,
thank you for everything today. I am ready to go do my budget and to go save my money.
That's a wrap.
All right, everybody.
Gotta go.
Bye.
Bye.